Yarek, Aisha, Behrad, 2 episodes every week.
Leancast, product innovation and UX design podcast.
What's up, everyone? It's Leancast. It's another episode. I'm super excited because I finally can get back to the office after 4 weeks of routine revamp and record the first podcast from the office. I'm here with someone that I'm really looking forward to talk to. Nikki Andersen. She has a long career in research. She has done, Nikki, please get my research corrected if I've done wrong, bad research. Sorry, I'm very, my situation, my personal life right now. So she has done a psychology Master of Arts in the New School, the University of in New York, which I've heard really good things about. So if you want to go there a bit, like talk about it, that would be fantastic. And the reason that I've really wanted this to happen is that Nikki is one of those craft people that really loves to talk about her craft and break it down for general audience. And I cannot emphasize how important it is as a craft person to talk about your craft online on social media. And she's done a really great job. I'm really involved. Whenever she posts, if I am online, I will follow, I will read it, and always she tries to bring value. She's the founder of the User-Centric Academy. Yep. And for all the UX researchers and the UX designers that are listening to this, she has an active UX research community as well that you can find out more at uxresearchacademy.com. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Nikki. Nikki, thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. I really appreciate it. I am doing well. We had a bank holiday yesterday. It was very fantastic. And we have 2 bank holidays next week. So the UK does not care about the month of May, apparently.
Goodbye, productivity.
Yeah, you know what? I don't mind. I'm kind of excited.
I actually think, Nikki, I took Monday off as well, and I came back to work today very refreshed.
That sounds very different from my journey that I had. I came back and I was like, maybe another day would be fine. I'm like eager, so I'm really into Pokemon. Like Pokemon is like one of my favorite video games, and I have recently restarted playing Let's Go Pikachu, and so I'm really deep in my Pokemon playing right now. So that's pretty much all I've wanted to do today.
I feel you. Yeah. I haven't played Pokemon, but I can feel you why. Like, I've been in those situations before that I really wanted to do the other thing, but this thing, the CEO, the boss in me was like, "No, Behrad, you have to really stay and do this thing."
Yep. That's that horrible CEO. It's annoying. You can only blame yourself.
Yeah. Which hat should I blame? The CEO, the designer, the researcher, the marketer?
Exactly, all the above. Yeah.
Nikki, thanks for coming on the podcast. So I would love to you have a really interesting sort of career path. You work at Zalando, you work as a senior user researcher and user research on different for different companies and different occasions. You are a contribute speaker, you are a contribute editor, you have now your own shop, your own agency. I would love to learn from your background. It's up to you how far back you want to go. Day 0, day 1, day. You choose the time frame. Can you walk us through your sort of a career path?
Yeah. So I was born in 1989, and that's when it
Okay.
started.
Okay.
I'm dating myself. I'm in my mid-30s. It's a scary age sometimes. But anyways, though, all jokes aside, I got into user research in an atypical way, which is the way that almost everybody gets into research. There's no like nice mode taken care of path. User research. It's a bit of a wild ride through the forest. And so I was getting my master's in psychology with the 150% full intention of getting my PhD and becoming a clinical psychologist. I wanted to work in mental hospitals, work with patients who had pretty severe mental illnesses. I did a lot of research, clinical research on borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, all of these like more intense types of illnesses. And what happened was I worked at a mental hospital for about a year and a half, and I realized that I can't make boundaries properly. So I really suffered with burnout when it came to that particular role, and I ended up declining my PhD expenses. And I freaked out, went to a career coach, considered interior design. I can't design.
Wow.
Yeah, considered interior design, considered quitting everything, moving out of New York City and just working somewhere in a bookstore, right? Because I like books. So that was something. And then I found out about user experience at a party. So I was at a party in New York City. Somehow, some stroke of luck, somebody was like, I do user experience. And I was like, cool, what's that? And then I learned about it and signed up for General Assembly. I was like one of the like OG boot campers at General Assembly. Found out I sucked at design. I am I can't even draw a circle. Like my circle edges overlap. Like I can barely draw a square. Like I can't do anything design wise. And then I was lucky enough within that General Assembly class, we had one day on research, and I was like, this is it. I want to do this. And from there, I worked my way towards that goal. But it was a very weird path, and one that wasn't quite fun to walk in New York City when you were like, I don't know how to pay rent today. So it was a bit intense, and there weren't many resources out there, but totally worth it. I loved it.
How did you? Why totally worth it? Like, I just sort of like leading like a follow-up question. I just want you to like not lose the thread here and like walk us through that path. So from the General Assembly, like what happened there that day that you bump into the research? And the reason I want you to go a bit more detailed because a lot of folks that are listening in their like early stages, and probably they're like a bit like half panicking, half like applying blindly to all the potential job openings. So walk us a bit through it.
Yeah, of course. So I remember when we went over user research, it was during the summer, and it was a particularly hot day, and I almost skipped the class. So
Oh no.
I was almost a crappy designer for the rest of my life. But no, I went to the class, and I was sitting next to my friend at the time. We were both like in this together, trying to figure out. She was a fantastic designer. Her name was Allie. She's awesome. If Allie's listening, hey, shout out to Allie from General Assembly. You're awesome. And we were sitting there, and the instructor started to go over talking to people and understanding people and thinking about how people use products, why people use products, how these products kind of work in people's lives with the ideal of helping them. Right? We're building something to help people. And I was sitting there like this, like from a psychology background, I've always wanted to help people. Like that is something that I've been passionate about. I didn't really know how to go about it, especially in this weird transition time where I kind of gave up on my childhood dream of becoming a clinical psychologist. And I could not my other childhood dream was to be a veterinarian. I can't even look at a dog or a cat without crying, let alone having injured animals come in. Like that was never going to work out. So my dreams, as they were, had kind of all gone away. And I was like sitting there saying, oh, well, I want to help people. I love understanding people. Like I love like listening to people talk. So this seems really interesting. And then we learned more about interviews, and the usability testing part was like, it was all right. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
Behind this, fine. Like, we can understand how products work in front of people. But like the interviews, I was like, whoa, I want to talk to everybody about everything so that I can understand it and not only help those people, but help my teams make better decisions. So helping users in a way by trying to create better products, but most importantly, I am a support system for my teams within an organization. Like I am support and help serve them to make better decisions so that their work can shine. And for me, like that to me was such an impactful role to hold at an organization, and something that really, really resonated. I was kind of like, whoa, this sounds like a good trajectory for me.
You know, you said something that I want to get back to. You said like you went through the user testing curriculum and you found it easy, I would assume, or like, okay, straightforward. And this resonated with me a lot, because when I look at the curriculum out there, online courses, it's my curiosity. It's our craft. I just want to see what's out there. In the user research online courses, there is an overemphasis on user testing, right? And of course, it's something that you need to know how to conduct. But to your point, which was subliminal, that's not the value of research.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not it. So, Nikki, can you break this down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love usability testing and user testing when it's appropriate.
Yes.
There are times where you can get really great stuff from it, but the problem and why it's so over-indexed is because a lot of people use usability testing or use researchers as a means to validate ideas.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I don't let so I have a mentorship program. I don't let my students say the word validate. I have a membership in my community. I don't let the people in the membership, like it's like 100 and some odd people, 150, over 150 now people in the membership. Nobody says validate in that membership, right? We don't say the word validate because research cannot validate anything. Nobody can validate things. No one function can sit there and say no, go, or go. No one function can sit there and say yes or no. Validation comes from many different sources within an organization that help build that holistic picture.
Wow. Okay. You need to break it down. Wow.
No problem.
So let me summarize still here. User research cannot validate any, like, entirely.
What could we validate? Yeah, no. Validate anything.
Okay, take us to the school, please.
Yeah, I might have upset some people by saying that, so I hope not. So
fascinating. No, I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So when we think about validation, right? So
sure.
let's take the lens of and I speak towards product managers because I've hung out with a lot. I've worked with many. My husband's a product manager. I have a bit of an inside knowledge. I've hung out with his product people in a working kind of environment. So I know that not all product people are like this. Just wanted to shoot that quick disclaimer out. However, a lot of product people might come to researchers and say, okay, we need to validate this design, right? We need to figure out if it should be this design or that design. And how can one do that? There are so many confounding variables that go, like, what does validation even mean? You know, like there is so much that goes into the concept of validation. And when you come to qualitative research, we're working with small sample sizes. As much as everybody complains about our small qualitative sample sizes, then they come to us asking us to validate a design with 5 to 7 people. It can be a very confusing kind of message that's being sent about user research. So whenever validation comes up, it's kind of like no one function can tell you, not even data analytics, not even marketing, not even business analysts, not even sales, not even customer support. No one department can tell you this is the golden ticket. This design is going to work by all means with all people. Everybody's going to love it. It's going to be the best. People are going to buy it. Woohoo. Because I promise you, if user research could validate designs, we would be a lot more popular.
Wow. You were speaking so much, like it's so resonating with me so much that as you were talking, there were like numerous examples of clients wanting us to do exactly this.
Yeah.
You said something about 5 to 7 interviews. If you remember a few years ago when design sprint were so trendy, God knows how many design sprint workshops I participated, that by Friday I was so exhausted and frustrated and disappointed that, hey, again, I attempted to yet another, I wouldn't frame it wasteful, but ineffective design sprint, because there was so much pressure about validation of the designs in those user testings that frankly, like when you said validation of what against what, it's so, oh yeah, exactly, validation against what?
Yeah. It's putting a lot of people in impossibly difficult and stressful situations. So as I said, I was a designer for a fraction of a moment, and everybody was like, "Oh no, don't do that. That's not for you." But like even within that moment, when I was asked to design things, and validate those designs, I was like, "What if I'm wrong?" Well, how am I supposed to know that? Because when you talk about the word validate, it's almost like this is 100% the truth. Nobody could ever know that. Or,
True.
as I said, we would all be very popular. Like there would be a lot of people making a lot more money if user researchers could go, this design, yep, this is 100% going to work for everybody. No question. This is the best. But we can't do that. And then we put an impossible amount of pressure on a lot of different functions to have this like truth that's not a truth, that can't be proved.
It is, and it's my ongoing frustration, not frustration, I think, strike through in that word. It's my ongoing educational challenge that I have to sit with every client. Nikki says that, hey, Behrad, can you run a random user test? Sure, I'll run it for you. Here are the learnings. Cool, thanks for the learnings, but can we launch this?
Yeah.
And my typical answer, you said it absolutely, you knocked it out of the park, is what is the confidence? We cannot possibly get to a point of high confidence out of exposing our ideas to 5 to 7 potential customers. Especially, for example, if you want to tap into London market, or not even London market, a neighborhood in London, or a neighborhood in Berlin. You're talking about thousands of people, if not millions. How, like, as a designer, as a researcher, I don't have that ego, the monster level of ego. to tell you, hey, this is the way, this is where you want to go. I can tell you need to go like use different research methods to increase your confidence, but at the end of the day, you just increase your confidence few points, not so much. Like, it's just like you don't have that budget to get to that level of high level of confidence about anything that you're trying to push out there to the market.
Yeah. You can't, especially with just research. We need to look at things like, what is the business saying? What is marketing saying? Like, how have we looked at the market? What are some competitors that are doing something similar? Like what else is out there, and like what resources can we pool to say, oh yeah, this might be a good idea, right? But like, yeah, no one function should be held responsible for a go, no go, launch, don't launch decision.
I'm getting it now. So from what I'm hearing is that research is a multi-dimensional activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a support. It's a support. It's moving you closer, like everything. It's moving you closer to making the best decision that you can with the data that you have, right? And it's one data point in that pie, right? It's one piece of that pie. It's like you would not look at product analytics and say, should we launch this or not? Data analytics is one piece of it, right? Same with usability, same with discovery research, same with market analysis, same with competitive analysis, same with business analysis, like same with, even what is the customer support team telling us based on our current product, and are people looking, like, what about our reviews? Like, we triangulate all of these things to make this decision. User testing with 7 people is not going to tell us that we should launch something. And I understand why people want answers. I get it.
Yes.
Because like we go back to this pressure, these situations. Nobody is, or I shouldn't say nobody, most people are not malicious. When people come at you saying things like, oh, we need this yesterday. Oh, should we launch this or not? Oh, like all of these stressful questions that they have, it's because they're getting stress from above too. They're getting pressure from somewhere else, and they're looking for a way to alleviate that pressure.
So you got away from an extremely traumatic and a stressful situation and sort of like put yourself into another stressful situation that you have to deal with a stressed out product manager and product executives that are being not forced, but being stressed out by their bosses to make certain decisions, and they're looking at you to give them the validation, in the validation quotation marks, that they're looking for to launch this campaign or enterprise. How do you go? Like, I feel your pressure. Because like, as a one craft person to another craft person, I feel your pressure, and also I feel the energy I'm getting here is someone that cares about their projects and want to do the right by their clients. How do you go about sort of like swimming against the current, so to speak, and breaking down this huge important fact that research is multidimensional? You cannot really only rely on one data point to basically validate the entire enterprise. What's your strategy? Especially, I think you're the right person to talk about because you're a psychologist as well.
So there are a few different things, because you had mentioned already kind of talking through different methodologies. So, okay, we understood this, and this. So the next step would maybe be to do like a beta test, right? And then we do a beta test with a larger group of people to like right? And then maybe we, with the product manager, okay, let's roll it out to this market or this percentage and see what's happening and make sure the feedback. So there are ways to roll things out in small incremental steps that maybe make the process feel better, so that you can get a larger pool of feedback from people and still not feel like everything's out of your control. Like, let's just launch everybody and hope it works, right? So there are incremental ways of you, kind of what you said, increasing your confidence point by point, right? But when it comes to this over reliance on user research as an answer or as a mechanism of understanding launch or not launch, what I tend to do is immediately go to workshops. So after I present or talk through stuff that I learned, I immediately bake in a workshop, because I say, okay, now we all need to get together to make this decision based on the knowledge that each of us has. I will invite somebody from data analytics. I will invite somebody from product, somebody from business, somebody from marketing, somebody from all the relevant places to have this conversation. Where does user research fit within this larger conversation of the knowledge that we already have about what we're trying to accomplish here?
Got it. So you wear your design thinking hat on to bring in a cross-disciplinary teams that everyone has a different understanding about that topic, about that project that they want to launch. Oh, okay, fascinating.
Yeah, because then everybody has a voice, and then it is a multi-dimensional decision. It's a cross-departmental decision. It's an organizational decision. Now, there might be instances in which a launch moves forward regardless of any of these conversations. That happens all the time, but it's still important to try and have these conversations to spread the awareness that they should be collaborative, right? One person should not have that weight, regardless of who that person is, right? It's not really fair to put that on a singular person, and it should be collaborative and supportive effort, which is why I say, again, I always am emphasizing research is a support. We are not, we are a support.
Can you break down this statement, research is a support, a bit more? I would love to understand it.
Yeah. So essentially what it is we support teams in trying to make better decisions. And usually that involves more user centricity. So user-centric decisions. So we are not giving teams answers. That's why user researchers, you will see sometimes product managers or other stakeholders might ask questions like, so what do you recommend? And we as researchers can be a little bit careful about that, because we're not trying to give answers, because that's not where our specialization lies. Our specialization lies in kind of bridging that gap between the customers and the product teams, so that the product teams can make better decisions. But that's where those workshops come in, because what I used to do was I used to say, oh, it's good enough to present these insights, and then that's it. But I quickly realized that people didn't really understand how to use them. Like they were obvious to me. I'm like,
yes.
I've been sat in this data for days, if not weeks, right? And so it's so obvious to me what comes next. I don't know how to design. I don't know how to code. I don't know enough about business to make these decisions. My other counterpoints do. So that's why I started to realize the activation phase is the most important part, in terms of like getting people into this workshop and saying, okay, these are the things that we found. How do we then work together to make that decision, right? So if we found an insight that, something within our product is very confusing to users, and we're missing some of the basic tasks that they need to do, let's come together to start to brainstorm how we bridge that gap for them, how we address those pain points, how we address those needs. And I need not just me with the insight, I need my designer in there to talk about the design. I need my product manager in there to talk about any sort of business aspects. I need some of my devs in there to talk about the feasibility of these things. That's why it's so important to bring one in. And that's why we're a support, because we give a data point to help support our teams making those better decisions with mind. But we're just one part.
I'm just letting it sink in, because the way you articulate the role of the researcher, feedback for you has been, I've done 75 episodes of this podcast. This has been very unique, the way you talk about research. And it's very a sobering take on research. So basically, if I summarize, please correct me if I'm wrong, you're acting as a catalyst between the the, the users, customers, what have you, and product teams or business as general.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, we are there to help remind people who
Hmm.
we are building for and what those people need.
Hmm.
Because like when it comes, and there are plenty of reasons to get pissed off when it comes to stakeholders and us all trying to work together, and
Oh yeah.
it can be very difficult. But when it comes down to it, and my husband reminds me, because sometimes I can go on some rants, but my husband reminds me, we are all here to build better products. We are all on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to bring ourselves all together in that collaborative nature so that we can make these decisions together, because everybody has the piece of knowledge that they need to put into this decision that makes it the best decision possible with all the data that we have.
Got it. So am I correct to assume or conclude that as a researcher, you need to be able to work with people, not only working with people, but actually bringing people and align them and work with them towards a common goal. So you become a facilitator, so to speak.
Your researchers are facilitators, yes.
Mm.
Above all else, we're facilitators in interviews, we're facilitators in workshops, we're facilitators in meetings. It's been one of the skills that I think is a soft skill. It's always a soft skill, but I think it's one of the most important. I would call it a technical skill for a researcher.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I lost count how many workshop I like, just 2 hour workshop, a speedy workshop with like executives that ended up in nowhere, because I think there is something with researchers, I would say, that really makes them the right persons to run a workshop or to organize a workshop, because usually researchers are the ones that are unbiased, are not invested in actual product, and that's why, like, at Bonanza Design, whenever our designers want to do research, I have to jump into a call with them before the testing. Was like, absolutely, you are not going to engage. You are acting as if you don't know anything about this product. Yeah. It's difficult, but like, yeah. So back to my point, the effect, the reason that researchers could be a good candidate for being facilitators of multi-stakeholder projects within an organization, because they're unbiased and they're very object oriented.
Yeah, we are hugely. I care about the product in the sense that I care that I'm helping my team. I care about my stakeholders, really. I feel like can make good facilitators and good researchers is you have this unbiased attitude, like you're able to neutralize situations and you empathize and care about people, right? That it's not just empathizing with users, you have to empathize with everybody on your team. And that's a huge shift for me in becoming a better researcher and a better facilitator, and understanding the stress that everybody is it goes back to stress and pressure, right? That everybody is under, and wanting to make difficult decisions faster, easier, whatever, people want to like move forward with things because everybody's pressured for this metric, this OKR, this KPI, this goal, this, that. So yeah, it really helps to be, for a facilitator to be an unbiased, neutral perspective who cares a lot about people.
100%. A lot of topics I would love to go into with you, like to get deeper. But since we talked about it, and I want you to get your take on it, is that when we typically start a user research campaign with a client, there is, what are these stages of denial, anger, that you go through? And often with clients that they haven't done research before, they come in, they like, hey, we want to launch this app, revamp it or whatever. Let's do research and then let's design it. And then as you know, as we conduct research, we open many Pandora boxes. And sometimes, and not sometimes, actually often, we get back to the client after conducting one round of exploratory research, impression testing, use it, what have you. And we present the data and some of these insights, user insights, contradict heavily with the core assumption that they were making in designing this application or designing the concept of our application. So what's your take on these project mindset clients or folks that are like, Nikki, we have to get this thing done. Let's do some research and let's just wrap it up. How do you go about like sort of like communicating the importance of continuous research?
Yeah, so it can be really difficult, as you said, when you find something that goes essentially that proves people wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong, right? Like everybody wants to be right, especially if you are higher up in your organization and people are below you and they're looking at you and like somebody comes in from the outside and like, you're wrong about everything that you thought. That can make you look really bad to a lot of people. We have to be very careful with how we communicate this information because a lot of people are very invested in their ideas. So invested that it's scary, and so we have to be careful with how we communicate what we found. But something that I find is really important is when people come to me and they say, oh, well, we need research because of, we need to do it. I'm kind of like, okay, I want to make sure that this is not on your to-do list.
Yes.
That this is just not some sort of checkbox that we're that part of the process that we're just ticking off and we're not actually going to listen to anything. So I always ask, what impact can research have where we are right now? So if somebody tells me essentially, well, we have this design already, we're not going to change the design really, we just want to make sure that the design is okay. Validation, right? Then what I do is I give them two options of which they use. I can say, hey, have you done previous research on this design? And if you have, can I take a look at it and see what it's like?
Fair enough.
See the quality of it and then make comments on that and probably maybe say, hey, if this isn't great research, if you haven't done research, I would recommend we do some sort of exploratory research, but only if you are ready to completely tear down everything that you ever thought of. And
okay.
Yeah, so I'm very upfront. Like I will say, like there is a distinct possibility that what I come back with is not what you want to hear. I see that to every stakeholder. I'm like, just up front, there's a possibility that things that you assumed could be wrong, right?
Oh, so you are so like...
I operate on like the transparent, straightforward route because
I've
tried to hide it. I've tried to make it a secret. I have tried to deliver things in a way that it was completely ineffective because I was so scared of delivering them. Right. And so what I say is, if you're ready to go into this with that mindset, nothing is necessarily what you are thinking is not necessarily wrong. You did not do anything wrong, but we might find that people have different mental models than what you expected. And if you're okay with that and kind of breaking down and tearing down the things that we already know and saying, maybe we have to throw that out and start a little bit over, then this is the direction that I would go in.
Okay.
If you are not in that space, if this is going to go launch, if this is just the way it is, and you are looking at me to kind of understand where this design sits with people, what I can recommend to you is doing a usability test to make sure it's usable. I cannot verify the design. I can look at the usability of it. And I can... That's
very professional.
Yeah, and I can do certain tasks. We can make sure that people can accomplish certain goals, that they can do the basics. We can go more in depth if there are like complex tasks so that we can understand the usability of the product. And I can ask certain metrics like the single ease questionnaire to understand ease of use. I can ask the SUS or the UMUX at the end to understand perceived usability and satisfaction. boom, I can do that and come back at you. But what I'm doing with that is I'm negating the fact that it might be a possibility that nobody needs this. So it's up to you wherever you are with this. You decide. I always, because like, depending on the relationship, you could try and strong arm somebody into this. And by all means, it's very important to kind of say, if you don't explore these ideas, if you're not willing to kind of uncover things that you don't think that you know, or kind of tear down your assumptions, you are risking product failure. And there are a lot of products that fail out there because they didn't really think about this part of the process. And I want you to avoid that. I am here to help you avoid that. So this is what I would recommend in that. But if you're really not feeling that, then as a caveat, this might fail because people might not need it. It might not be the most prioritized thing. It might not address a pain point that people need, but we can make sure that the usability on whatever you've created is there. Again, with this information, you make the decision based on where you are, because I'm not going to go and do a bunch of exploratory research for you to then essentially not use it. Because
sometimes it stresses those findings stress out the client even more.
Yeah, of course.
And
it's, imagine having this whole product and somebody comes back and is like, well, this sucks. And you're like, cool. Yeah. So it's, to me, I like to kind of like set those expectations up front, and but I come at it, I never try and come at anything from a confrontational, like, well, you're if you choose this path, like, but it's more like, hey, out of like respect and kindness, I totally understand that there are different circumstances going into this. If you are just so super pressured to do this, and there's nothing we can do to change this, and this has to be launched, let's at least make sure that it's usable.
What I love about your approach, and I would love to reflect on it for a bit younger folks that are getting into the field of research, is you are not leaving clients high and dry. You are offering them approaches. There is no like, okay, if you don't take this, I'm out. It's like, here's one approach for if you want to go deep. Here's one approach that can at least get some of the surface, iceberg type problems that everyone can see. You can address those.
Yeah.
So it's very cool to hear this. Like, I'm not leaving you alone by yourself, but know that there are different ways of tackling research here. Here are your options.
Yeah. And with all of the consequences that come with both of those options, because the consequence of doing exploratory research, as you said, could be very high as well, of having a product already done and stressing a lot of people out and having to start from scratch. The consequence of just doing usability testing when you haven't really understood your users' needs or their goals or their pain points is that you might have a product that fails, right? There are consequences to both sides, and it's almost easier, and they don't have to make the decision alone, right? I'm happy to talk through it and talk through those consequences, talk through the timelines, talk through the budget, talk through this, talk through that, like all of the things, so that they can then make the most informed decision on what they're actually going to use. Because that's what, again, it comes back to like that support system. What are you actually going to use? Right? I have talked out of working. I've talked people out of doing research, which sounds mad.
What?
Because there literally have been people that I've worked with who were like, we're not going to change anything. Like, when it comes down to it, we're not going to change anything. This is a check. And I'm like, give your money to somebody else. Like, give your money to your designers or to your devs to like give them better like salaries or something like that. Like, don't put this in if you're not going to change anything. Or come back to me when you're ready.
Yeah. Come back to me when you are able, or when you're willing to understand the full effect of your decision today and how it will impact your business a year down the road.
Yeah.
Or 6 months down the road.
Exactly. And it's also, you can share statistics with them of, this is what happens if you do research. It's less development time. It's less design time. You don't have to go backwards. You have fewer customer support calls, which means that your customer support team isn't overwhelmed. Sales has an easier time of selling the product. Marketing has an easier time of marketing it. There's so many great value adds from research, but I am not here to convince somebody that they have to do research if they're not there. It's not
100%.
their job, right? Like,
It's a different service. It's a different service that you have to provide. It means education, not research. It's just sometimes it's really great point. Sometimes folks are really engaged in clients for no reason on things that are not ready yet. And they spend their time trying to educate them without getting paid for it.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
Me too. I've done it a lot.
100%. And you know what? There are times where you also have to be a bit selfish, because I realized after doing a lot of crappy work in that space, a lot of free work, a lot of work that wasn't used, that nobody cared about, that was so constrained that I couldn't do anything with, I had no case studies.
Oh, so important.
I had nothing to show for the work that I did that was actually usable. And we also have to be selfish with that, because we need that.
Nikki, I think you touch upon pain points of, I don't want to put a number on it, but a significant portion of user researchers out there.
Yeah. I have felt so many of those pain points so many times in the past 10 years. Yeah.
So let me summarize what I've heard is, because you work with the wrong people and you spend your energy in the wrong channels, then you did not create something of impact that you could put it in your portfolio.
Yeah. Yep.
Ooh, that's deep.
Yeah. And it was really hard to look back at that, because I'm perfectionistic. I've let go.
Sorry, it's deep. I don't want to put you in the corner, because I've done it a lot too. So you sort of I resonated with, I've done that so much.
Yeah. And it's really hard. I have perfectionistic tendencies. I've let go of a lot of perfectionism through a lot of therapy and a lot of self-work, right? Taking a step back from that. But, it's really hard to look back at work that maybe in the moment you were like, okay, fine, this isn't the best, but let's make it work. Or fine, I'm going to make this decision to continue trying to get this person to listen to me. And it's so hard to look back on that and be like, I have no show. I have nothing and not even a check for half the work that I really did. And that is a really, really hard thing to look at. And it can be really self-deprecating. And I want people to know that to a certain degree, you need to change your decision making, but it's a rut that a lot of people get stuck in. It's something that happens to a lot of people, and it's not necessarily reflective of you, but you can utilize ways of making better decisions and working with people in better ways who are a better fit for you where you are.
And what you have just said is so valuable and priceless, and does not only apply to freelancers or agency people, only even the people who work that are full-time employee in an organization. Pick your projects, really take a second look of the project description, people you're working with, department you're working with. That's just really important, that how you're spending your time. How, because I'm going through, at least I think, burn few years of my career just working with the wrong people.
Yeah, 100%. Or spending so much time. I remember, because I've done a lot of in-house work, and part of my intake criteria for a project is asking, when will these insights be used and how will they be used, right? If nobody can answer that, I'm not going to do the project, because I spent so much time doing research that was just went to die in a Google Drive folder. And then what happens is then you get so, as an individual, or at least this was my experience, you get so demotivated that you start to burn out. You start to not have the energy to do the things that then when an actual project comes along, you're kind of like, well,
Yeah.
like maybe I'm not really in the mood, or I can't stand this product manager, or like I can't like deal with this. Like you're already so tired. I spent so much
Mhm.
of my time so tired fighting this fight, and I was like, I'm not gonna. You can't do that. It's not fair to yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's simple as that. It's an art. I think I've been trying to reflect how can we sort of like, is there a recipe out there to sort of like, hey, follow this to be able to avoid such dramas? And I guess like, for folks like you that been in this game, well, in this industry for long enough to be able to recognize this pattern. And I will say that, of course, we have to, of course, avoid this kind of scenarios, but for a lot of younger researchers, sometimes they don't have an option. They have to make ends meet to, pay the rent. So they're like, okay, I kind of, it's just difficult to sort of like, hey, no, if you see this project, you have to say no. If you bump into a project description like this, say no. At the end of the day, the existential needs always dictate.
Yeah, yeah. I will say there are projects that I did as a senior researcher that were not ideal because
Ah,
had no choice. Like you do come to a point sometimes where you don't have the choice, right? And of course, this is in we don't live in an ideal world, and like in an ideal world I would ask, hey, how are you going to use these insights, and when are you going to use them? Is it going to be within the next 3 months? If not, we're going to do the research later. If you can't answer how you're going to use the insights, we're not going to do the research until you're ready to use the insights. Those are all ideal things, and as I've grown in my career, I've been able to I used to hate confrontation, and now I realize confrontation doesn't have to be negative. You can just be transparent and upfront, because that saves everybody time, right? So like, we're not going to do this research because you're not going to use it. We're saving everybody time, right? I operate by like, it's like the opposite, like improv is yes and, you know,
yes.
yes and improv. I operate on the like no but. So it's like the opposite kind of improv, but like still has some improv tendencies to it. So, you come to me and you ask me, hey, can we do this? Can we do this usability testing to understand which test people prefer? No, because I don't believe in testing for preference, because preference is a very slippery slope.
Yes.
However, but what I can do is I can do unmoderated usability testing on a higher level of people, so a higher sample size, and compare the two prototypes that we use to see which one is more usable and more satisfactory. So no, I can't do that, but yes, I can do this. Right. So I operate in that kind of way of like, same if like people are like, we're not going to really use your insights. So I will say, okay, if you can't get out of that, and if you can't just say, well, no, I'm not
Yeah.
going to research, then what else can you do for them? Could you do something that's leaner for yourself?
Yes.
Might be like an interesting, like, oh, like, what if I did a survey instead? Because I did
Mm.
that in my case study, right? Get selfish again. So like, if you can't avoid this, get selfish and say, okay, what are some cool things that I can include at this that can make it a viable case study?
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's, if you can't avoid it, try and work with it to the best of your ability in for a lack of a better way, selfish method, so that you're kind of getting something out of it.
And what I will say, of course, it's sort of like ties to, it could be a bit like working with tough clients is tough for sure. I mean, I do not want to be like, do virtual signaling and say to younger folks, even like more experienced folks, that, hey, you should be doing this in this tough situation, because at the end of the day, sometimes desperate times, desperate measures. So I don't want to put myself in that position to say, hey, do not do this, all you have, because it's very tough out there to be like, to be championing for what you're doing and try to really do it the way you want it. Um, even if, like, to add to what Nikki said, even if you are in a position that you say, okay, I've gave up, at least let me just get something for my own, case study and portfolio. Let me just do survey, because I haven't done enough survey and I don't have it in my portfolio, don't feel bad. Reason for it is that at the end of the day, you generate some learnings out of the survey that you can put in front of your client and say, look, I've done a survey with 1,000 people compared to the 5 user testing you wanted me to conduct. Now, for sure, when it comes to this question or when it comes to this core assumption, you've got a higher confidence that this could be leaning towards this direction, whereas the other direction.
Yeah, you can always utilize these moments to learn as much as you can. And speaking about that desperation piece, I was laid off from a job, and it was right before I was in America, so I was still in New York, and it was right before Thanksgiving, which is in November, which is not a fun time.
Not bad timing.
Yeah, because then we go right into the holidays, right? And then, you're not looking at a new job until probably February, March of the following year. And so what happened was I was absolutely desperate, and I took a job where I literally hated every single part of the process. I hated the person who interviewed me. I hated I'm going to be miserable. But what I did is I was miserable. I quit. I used that as a stopgap, and I learned as much as I could. I did really weird stuff at that job.
Yes.
Really weird, expressionist card sorting kind of thing, where there were these vague photos and people were sorting how they felt using these really weird photos, of thunderstorms or rainbows or stuff. And I was just like, whatever, I'm going to do some weird stuff to practice these skills that I'm not as good at. And
yes,
a stopgap for me then to while I looked for another job. And I was miserable. I cried in the bathroom. I was like that person eating lunch and crying in the bathroom because I hated my job. But you know what? I did some weird stuff. I learned how not to be a manager. That's for sure. And I learned, I still was able to try and find some learning. So if you are in that desperate space, try and find some ways to either do some weird stuff, practice some weird skills, practice things that you're not feeling confident about, and try and find some learnings in that. Or at least learn how you don't want to be. If you're surrounded by crap, you don't want to.
That's true. I mean, a lot of folks avoid confrontation, as you said, avoid negative scenarios, avoid disappointing experiences. But there could be learnings in there. I'm not saying that you have to go there, but if you end up there for whatever reason, again, I'm not trying to judge any, because it's just our job is so tough. And people say, hey, why are you working for this bad company that contributes? It's like, man, leave this person alone. Why? Have you seen? You don't know their life. You don't know where they are. Give them a break, right? So, but it's a really good point. It's very a stoic type point that, hey, if you are in those situations that there is no way out for at least near future, just try to honing on your craft, try weird stuff, and actually that's maybe that's when you could get to know some tools or approaches or processes that could shape up your future career.
Exactly. And I always say, in my membership, we actually had our first practice. So we were practicing generative research. And I always say the best places to practice are in low stakes situations. And I must say, some of the jobs that I haven't cared about have been low stakes situations that I knew that I was going to leave, that I was actively trying to leave. Of course, I'm not running around screaming, trying to get fired from these companies, but I tried really different workshop facilitation techniques to see how they worked. Right? Because I was ultimately, this is a low stakes situation in which I want to leave. I'm not sure exactly when I will leave, but my plan is to leave in the next 3 to 6 months. So in that time, what things can I try that I don't really care if they reflect too badly on me in this current position? That's a weird thing to
Wow.
say, but it's like,
Wow.
what can I practice that I'm not
Yeah.
to, because I know that I won't get promoted. I know that I'm going to leave. What can I practice now that maybe I want to know better for my next role?
Wow. First of all, Nikki, I would love, before we end this, I would love to invite you to a part two because there is a lot we can unpack. That's wow. Right. So I would love to end this with this. Get your take on this. What I've heard that it's sort of also, I think, something that a lot of younger folks dealing with and they don't know how to get over it is a lot of folks are afraid of standing out and trying things and break things, what have you. Or if you just want to like get the mic and like talk to those folks directly, how would you sort of like bring this point across?
Yes, I will say that I have made so many mistakes. I have stood out in all the wrong ways and I have broken so many things. I violated GDPR in Germany, which was the worst thing I've ever done by being lazy, to be completely honest. I thought I BC'd a bunch of people for recruitment. No, I CC'd and a lot of email addresses were leaked of customers. That's not a good look, right? I have messed up things and I have broken things and I have stood out in really bad ways and I have watched other people do that too. But the best thing that I would say is when you make mistakes or when you go to try things, there are two things that you can do. The first thing is be transparent with the fact that you are new to this or are just
Right.
when you set people's expectations up of imagine you're going into a workshop and trying some new, crazy eights, some new ideation that you've never done before. If you are straight up with your stakeholders who are in there, your participants who are in there, and you say, hey, I've never done this before, I'm trying this, I'm super open to feedback at the end, but try and roll with me as much as I can. I'm really trying to make this a better thing for everybody. People are going to be a lot nicer to you.
100%. 100%.
Set the expectation up that you are trying something new. Don't be scared of trying new things. If you're in a toxic company in which new means bad or failure means bad, that's a point at which you reassess, okay, how do I either learn these things outside of this context or how do I move to the next opportunity that isn't like this? The second thing that I would say within this scope is by trying things, you have a growth mindset. And
Yeah.
the most beautiful thing that people can have is this growth mindset. And I would not be anywhere where I am today if I tried to make a podcast episode of the mistakes that I've made as a user researcher. I would literally be talking to you for hours. I have made so many mistakes and it's okay because what I did is I said, whoops, okay, what can I do next that's better? And I asked people for feedback and I was receptive to that feedback. So having that growth mindset and being in a space where you're like, if I mess up, it's okay. If I mess up, it's okay because we are all on a learning curve and
Absolutely.
we're at different places of that curve. So it's okay to stand out, but be transparent about it, be straightforward about it, and be ready to get that feedback and change it so that you can prove to people, I am here to learn, I am here to make our lives better. And new things.
I cannot thank you enough for being so honest and so upfront with your experiences, with mistakes you've ended up making. I really cannot thank you enough for this episode and all the folks who have been listening so far. If this wasn't convincing enough, I don't know what is convincing. Go check out userresearchacademy.com. Join that academy if you would like to be around someone that is super honest and transparent about her experience in research. I think it's something you want to look into. Nikki, cannot thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to reach out again.
Yeah.
I would love to do a part 2 in the second half of the year, so we have enough, give it enough time. And thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting with you, and I really appreciate everybody who's listened. And hopefully, there were some really great points that you can kind of take out and use today, tomorrow, next week, next month. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, and until next episode, keep it safe, keep it healthy. We see each other soon.